Hi, I'm James, Chief Product Officer at akeia, and I'd like to take a couple of minutes to explain what it is we do. akeia was designed to improve mental health and productivity outcomes for employees and businesses. What does that mean in practice? Well, if we take news media, for example, in many cases it's overtly negative, with the majority of stories focused on wars, conflicts, health scares, increasingly partisan politics, disputes, etc. akeia believe that at work, employees should have the option of being shielded from such content, as it's been proven to affect mood, exacerbate existing conditions, and distract from an already extremely hectic workload. So akeia uses AI to understand the sentiment of article headlines, and that allows us to then blur those headlines in real time to shield the employee from those negative headlines. How do we achieve this? Well, first, we analyze a particular page, let's say for example a news media main page, and we'll decompose it and pass those headlines and accompanying text to an engine, which would typically use either an SLM or large language model to understand the context and sentiment of the article. Simple keyword analysis would not be enough, as that context of a word can make a big difference. So to use a topical example, the word striker could be in relation to the upcoming World Cup, or it may be a London Underground worker unhappy with negotiations. So once properly understood and the algorithm updated, we inject a script into a page via an intercepting proxy to modify the look and feel of a page. So what does that look like in practice? Well, as you can see here, I've got a page open. You can see at the top we have a banner that we've injected so that the employee knows that content's being filtered by akeia. There's a couple of options which we'll touch on in a second, but what you can see very quickly by navigating down the page is that a lot of the articles appear blurred, and they have a what's called a chip, a category chip on the top left, which is a very basic category at this point, which will tell me or give me a sort of good idea as to why the content behind was modified or hidden. In this case, you'll also notice there's a tooltip which we can add more information into, completely customizable, and filtered due to references to war, military action, terrorism, or armed conflict. We've also given it a score. Now, this is the algorithm sort of scoring based on a series of keywords, how those keywords fit together. That will get more advanced over time. But what we can also see at this point is that rather than us wanting to absolutely blur and or remove content which would fundamentally change the page, obviously there is an understanding that certain people may want to understand what they might be missing. So we added the option of the ability to reveal content. Now, this is something that can be controlled, as we'll see in a second, but if you notice, that was war and conflict, and as you can see, this is US and Iran's exchange of strikes. There we go, the word strikes, striker, etc. shows how far diplomacy has changed. So this is obviously conflict related material. That's not necessarily something I would want to view at work. If I really wanted to view that at work, that's something I could potentially look at on my phone. But if an employee is spending the majority of their day reading stories on the phone, there are probably rather larger issues in place than simply masking content that they might be seeing on a work computer. Now, I mentioned that was controllable. I gave the option here, in this case, in the banner, to be able to say, well, I'd like to just toggle that off. So all the articles now that have been blurred, you'll notice I can't reveal that content. Now, that could be something set by an administrator as well. That might be something after a learning period where people get comfortable with the system and say, you know what, I simply want reveal disabled. I don't want to be able to click on it, because there is quite a lot of research that says people that tend to start looking at negative content, the very way that the brain works means that people typically click into that content, and that might trigger other things, meaning that they will then follow other links and get into a doom scrolling pattern. So that typically is how we work on a site. I can toggle off, for instance, also the tooltips. You'll notice now that I have no tooltips over the various articles, but there are obviously other controls we can put in place. Over time, we will be able to more accurately or change, shall we say, the scoring levels on certain topics. And as we grow out the taxonomy of how we categorize various categories, you may say, actually, on war and conflict, I want a very, very high threshold on that. I don't want people to see that at all, unless they really, really want to click into that. Whereas politics, on the other hand, even if politics, which is getting increasingly partisan, people may want to actually look at that and say, you know what, I think it's only fair that people have the chance to sort of read what's going on for their particular, maybe political party or otherwise. Final thing to mention in this case, as you can see, obviously we've got scores on sort of either negative, positive, or neutral. In this case, the scoring algorithm will change over time as we get more and more advanced and use AI to better categorize some of these items. But that should give a good idea of how akeia works at this point. So thank you.